Today, I'm going to talk about my absolute favorite time management tactic. This is the number one thing that's revolutionized how I do my business, and that's calendar blocking, which is also known as time boxing. And I know it doesn't sound all that exciting, and I promise you it's not all that exciting, but it can be a bit addictive and, dare I say, sometimes even fun. But most importantly, it's really effective. So I want you to hit yes in the comments if any of these statements sound like you, or if there's something similar that you can resonate with. So anyone start their day getting lost in, stressed out by their inbox, tackling my tasks as they come to mind. So just kind of taking a random approach, procrastinating until the last minute, pausing work throughout the day to contemplate what to do next, always working on the urgent stuff that's due now. And you never have time for the important but not urgent stuff. For me, an example was writing my book. It was important. I knew I wanted to do it, but it wasn't for a client. It wasn't urgent. It never felt like a priority. And then you feel overscheduled and overcommitted. And that was me. And I knew that something had to change. And look, I did a couple of things to get to where I was, to where I am today. Procrastination, says Jillian, 100%. And calendar blocking was one of them. And I kind of got into it by accident because before I started calendar blocking, that's what my calendar looked like. So I'm sure some of yours will look the same, where you literally, all you have blocked in there is maybe a couple of reminders and your meeting slots, where you actually have a meeting with another person. And then I started using one of my favorite tools that Tiffany mentioned, which is Calendly. And basically how Calendly works is it syncs with, if you don't have it, go get it straight after this. And it syncs with your calendar, and it allows people to book meeting slots at times you're available. So instead of going back and forth with, 1,001 emails, trying to find a time that suits both of you, it's easy. They can have a look at your calendar and book a slot that suits them. So highly recommended. But what I realized was, well, if my calendar is gaps, then people can book meetings with me at any time, and I don't want that. And I want kind of as few meetings as possible. A lot of you, I saw in the comments, were very clear that meetings were quite a time waste in the day. So now my calendar looks a little bit more like this, and I'm going to take you through my approach, and we're going to go step by step and go for it yourselves. So I base my calendar on my ideal day, which of course doesn't always go like this, but having time for personal projects and my passions, doing focused work in my most productive hours. So in the chronotypes, I'm definitely the lion. First thing in the morning works for me. My brain dies also at about 2:00. So making sure that I'm doing the real meaty stuff then, eating the frog, getting some exercise, some white space to fill with whatever I fancy that day, because I'm not a robot. I'm a human, and I want to be able to live that way. Giving back to the freelance community, so doing things like today, spending some time reading and spending time with friends, my daughter, my husband. So, ideally, I would do all these things in a day. Does it happen? Not all the time, but it does help guide the way that I spend my time and block my calendar. So it's something that Tiff mentioned too, that almost ironically, structure is equivalent to freedom. So I'm not a very A-type kind of person, believe it or not. I do prefer a bit of spontaneity, go with the flow. I'm not very good at keeping to rules or recipes or anything like that. But I've learned that by having this structure, it actually buys me the freedom that I so crave in my freelance career and in my life in general. So today we're going to start implementing a bit of that. So I want you to pull up your favorite calendar app, old school diary if you're Tiffany, and we're going to start taking control. So hopefully a couple of you brought with a to-do list, or just have somewhere written. I'm sure many of you have something like this on your desk that has illegible notes all over the show of things that you're meant to be working on. Maybe you're a bit more organized. But if you have a to-do list, please whip it out now, along with your favorite calendar or app, and we're going to work through some calendar blocking right now, so that it's not some homework you have to do. We're going to give you a little taster now, and hopefully you'll continue with it. So step one, I want you to open your calendar and allocate some time according to your chronotype, ideally, for those deep work tasks. And not just the urgent stuff, but the urgent and important stuff. Or the urgent, not urgent, important stuff. So, for example, the one I gave was writing my book. It wasn't urgent, but it was something that was important to me. So assign blocks in your calendar for those focused high priority tasks. And like I said, consider your energy levels. So here's an example. On a Thursday, I'm going to go to the gym in the morning, which also I find quite a nice way to start the day and kind of get me focused. And you have a nice shower afterwards and feel good. And then I've scheduled personal writing, which is, again, something that is not urgent, but it is important to me. And in alignment with what Tiffany said about creating appointments for yourself, that's an appointment that I have with myself. Sure, maybe if I've got an important deadline on Thursday, I can move it to Friday, but you don't want to be canceling those week on week and then you never get around to it. So that your deep work includes not only your personal projects or your important stuff, but as well as client deadlines and things like that. So go ahead and put those blocks in. Even if you don't know what that work is for now, maybe just start by scheduling 2 hours of focused time at a time that you know your brain is working optimally. Okay, step 2. We're going to pop in those fixed appointments, non-negotiables. So perhaps you have some fixed meetings, appointments, commitments, anything like that. Include your personal activities like I did. I know I go to the gym on a Thursday, so I've put that in my calendar. Family time, breaks, and recurring responsibilities, your work meetings, personal tasks. So if you know that you pick up your kids at a certain time, stick that in the diary then. So just an example, like looking at my Friday, I've got my deep work client time from 8 to 10. This white space is time that I have to fill in with ad hoc projects. So I haven't filled in anything there. And then I've got a personal project. And then you see I schedule in time where I don't have a nanny because then I'm unable to work. And I've scheduled in time, believe it or not, for myself and my husband to spend time together, because if we're not intentional about it, we end up being passing ships and forget what each other even look like. And it's important to me to schedule that time in too. So let me just want to go back to that one. So in this step, you're just going to block out things that you know happen in your week or in your day or something like that. If you have any ideas or anything that you want to share with everyone to remind them, please feel free to pop it in the comments, things that you might not want to forget about. So I'll give you a few secs to do that. I also find having scheduled time to work out means that you're also more likely to do it, because otherwise it's another thing that you can say, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Whereas if it's a routine, if it's a habit, you do it every day, then it's easier to stick to it. And yes, buffer time should be daily. You don't want to fill your calendar completely. So I've got a white space slot every day, just for whatever's going to pop up during the day. So I have an intentional white space, and then I have the actual white space that I can fill when I have a better idea. So this is looking a bit ahead. So this is like Friday, the 7th of March. These are just the recurring things I have in my calendar week on week. And then the actual white space will change according to what I've got going on. Okay, I'm going to move on to step 3, recurring tasks and routines. So things like email, those appointments with yourself that Tiff was talking about, your email, admin work, planning, and also reserve time for actually reviewing what you've been doing and adjusting your schedule accordingly. I mean, a Friday is often good because you can have a look back at how the week's gone and adjust where you need to. So, for example, you might have set aside 2 hours to write a blog that actually took you 3 hours. So then maybe for the next week, you need to schedule a little bit more time. So, it's never an exact science. And you're always working it out as you go along. And to be honest, with my calendar, I don't actually necessarily stick to the times all the time. Often it just is, now I know that I have to do that in that day. And it also helps me not overcommit or oversubscribe to client work, because I'll see my calendar's full this week. Like, I literally do not have time to take on more work this week. And I needed to see that in blocks, because that's another place where I was falling short, is I was just saying yes, 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 yes to everything, without realizing it was almost physically impossible. So for example, I've got, I think it's every second Friday, I do my accounts. I've got time set for personal admin, whatever that might look like, updating medical aid details, or, something boring like that. I've got scheduled time for client revisions, so I don't necessarily do them at that time, but I'm just making sure that I've saved half an hour in case a client comes back to me on a random day with revisions that they need. So I just want to make sure that I have time in my day to do everything I need to do, so that I'm not ending the day or starting the day feeling stressed, frustrated about how I'm actually going to get all of this done. So Renee says the planning time I allocate on Fridays almost always gets eaten up by client work, and I end up doing it on the weekend. So there is a bit of discipline involved. And I know as freelancers, it's so difficult to say no to work. I find it difficult to say no to work. It's something that I'm always working on. So what I do is I use this calendar to give me validation that it's okay to say no. I look at it and I say, Shea, you do not have time for this. This is not the life you envision for yourself. And sure, you might earn a bit more money, but is it worth it in the long run? So that's also how I use this calendar, is actually my little backup buddy who says, whoa, hang on. It's time to pull the brakes a bit. Okay. And then lastly, schedule buffer and transition time. So to leave gaps in between tasks to prevent burnout, and allow extra time for tasks that may take a little bit longer than expected. So as I showed you, every day I've got the white space, the revisions, and then there's also, you can see actual white space in between tasks. So you definitely don't want to fill a day with client work. That's not sustainable. There's no ways you're going to be able to do that. And if you find yourself in a position like I was when I first started calendar blocking, in a position where I was doing that because it was my only choice, I realized I actually had to cut back on a bit of work, and I did. And it opened up the freedom for me to do the things that actually fill my cup a lot more than doing client work does. So I know it's difficult, but it really is value sometimes in just holding back and being realistic. So Tracy's asking about my buffer time. How do I manage only 15 minutes between my gym, 7:45, writing, 8 a.m.? Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so I do gym. My gym is a walk away, which is amazing. But like I said, it's not so much necessarily about the times. So, I might go to the gym at 6:30 and finish earlier. It's more about making sure that I have enough time in the day to do all those things. So whatever those gaps need to be, you make it work. This works for me. Like I said, I'm not super A-type about things. So I find it very difficult to say, now it's this time, I'm going to do this. So I find it difficult to be too structured. So for me, it's more of a guideline. But if you're someone who works better on actual time, and this is when it's going to start, then your approach might look a little bit differently. Yes. And Tiffany says, unlike me, who's super A-type about everything. Okay. So Renee says, doesn't work well when you work on ongoing projects. Okay, so that's where your white space comes in. Client wants something on a Friday afternoon. I cannot say no. Well, sometimes you're going to have to compromise maybe on something that you've put in there that can give and take, but otherwise make sure that you've got maybe more white space to accommodate for those needs. Okay, so here's, I think, what my week looked like. I can't remember which week this is. But yeah, and there are a few overlaps sometimes when I need to, okay, now I've got this scheduled. So then, that's why I like Google Calendar, because then I just drag and drop onto the next spot and kind of make sure I've got time for all these things. Okay, so some calendar blocking do's at the end of the week or whenever. Just reflect what worked, what didn't, because you need to make this work for you. Make adjustments to improve efficiency and balance. Add a 25% buffer to account for interruptions or tasks. So for example, if I know that the blog takes me 2 hours to write, I'll schedule 2.5 hours. or even 2 hours 15, whatever that looks like for you, just to make sure, because you don't want to be rushing and feeling pressured for time. That's not why we're here. And then include white space, very important. And if your name is Tiffany and you're very A-type about everything, this is what her calendar looks like. I can totally get why she does it. I see the benefit. I can't bring myself to do it. But if you're a Tiffany, you can see how it's beautifully color-coded. And yeah, recommended if that's your jam. All right, don't overschedule, like we've spoken about, filling every minute. Leave that buffer. Overestimate, tasks take longer than we think. And don't ignore your energy levels, like I've mentioned. You want to tackle the most challenging things when your brain is at its best. And then build in flex time, like Renee, like we were talking about. Disruptions are inevitable. So, life doesn't follow a cool, cute, twee little calendar. You've got to adjust and refine as you go, and that's okay. And again, like Tiffany said, it's about being kind to yourself too. So there's no need, you don't need another thing to beat yourself up over if that's your calendar. And I see there's a lot of love for the color. So good on you guys. You go forth with your good, colorful unicorn selves. All right. So I'd love to take a look at what your calendar's looking like now. I don't think you can put pictures in the chat, unfortunately, but you're welcome to email me a little screenshot or something, and maybe yours will be color-coded. I see I do have some color there, but I think that was automated. That totally wasn't me. Right, so just to finish off, I want you to take a little bit of time to imagine what it would feel like if you could actually live the life of your dreams and do the shit that you want to do. So when I started on my freelance journey towards working smart, I wanted more time to do the things I love without sacrificing my income. So I wanted more freedom, which is why I became a freelancer in the first place. So what would you do if you had more freedom? Let us know in the comments. What are some of the things you've been procrastinating or holding back on, or just not finding the time to do because you feel like you're stuck at work all the time or stuck behind your desk for 8 hours or more a day? I'd love to hear from you what that looks like for you, your ideal freedom, freelance freedom kind of life.